Hi, I'm Dustin, one of the Ozcode magicians. In this video, we're going to see how Ozcode makes dealing with exceptions easy. When it comes to working with exceptions, it can be difficult to determine exactly what went wrong. The more complex the code, the more complex the task of investigating the problem. While Visual Studio gives us a way to see exceptions and examine them, we can only examine one at a time, and once our debugging session ends, we lose all of the details related to the exceptions. Let's take a look at what I mean. For this example, I've set up a few nested method calls, with the final method throwing an argument exception. The exception will bubble up the chain, and each method will handle it in its own way. When we run this code, we break when the exception bubbles up and is no longer handled. We can examine the exception details, and if we pay careful attention, we can see there is an inner exception. Of course, we can drill down into other inner exceptions, and finally we see that there is an argument exception. We can use the stack trace property to see where the exception occurred, so let's stop debugging and go investigate. Except that when we stop debugging, we lose all of our exception information. If you didn't copy the information you needed, you'll have to rerun the project and reproduce the exception to get the information again. This is a big waste of time. Instead, let's turn on Ozcode and see what happens. Right away, we see that we don't have just one exception, we have 3 exceptions. If we want to, we can navigate directly to where the original exception was thrown and start investigating. But in this case, we need more info. So let's take a look at the exception in detail. With the exception detail window, we can quickly see the trail of exceptions, and we can navigate to each inner exception by clicking on its corresponding breadcrumb. Let's go to the one that we care about, which is the argument exception that started the chain. Right away, we can see the stack trace to see where it originated. But even better are these 2 options here. We can navigate to where the exception was handled, and we can also navigate right to where it was thrown. If we stop the debugger, the exception window disappears, but we can get it back by selecting View Exceptions from the Ozcode menu. This means we have access to all of the exception data even after the debug session has ended. If at any point you need help, you can click on the magnifying glass icon to get a list of search options like Google, Bing, and Stack Overflow, because you know you're going to end up there anyway. You can search for the exception type and also specific exception message. If we run this project once more, and then examine the exceptions details window, we can see there's another tab. Ozcode keeps a history of exceptions, so if you need to refer back to exceptions that occurred in a previous session, you can. In this video, we looked at different ways Ozcode helps us deal with exceptions. From big things like keeping exception history outside of the debugging session, to small things like a button for searching Stack Overflow. The time saved and effort reduced will benefit any developer. In the next video, we're going to look at how Ozcode lets us compare different objects, similar objects, and even different states of the same object. Thanks for watching.